We are Tottenham TV and an action-packed stream for you guys today as we're going to go through the nitty-gritty of the RZ Alkmaar win last night, and then it's going to lead into the Crystal Palace game that we're going to be previewing Sunday 2 o'clock kickoff. But yeah, it was a bit of a night last night. I don't think it was the greatest performance, but everyone's just talking about it. And Mikey Moore, what a performance last night.
Talk of the town, Mikey Moore, yesterday. He's been, Twitter been going absolutely, well, X has been going absolutely crazy for him. Even rival fans are sitting up and taking notice of Mikey Moore yesterday. Yeah, it was a real kind of breakout game for him. Some people say it was his Bale versus Maicon moment. I don't know if I'd go that far. But it was a sight to behold, him in full flight, especially at the beginning of that second half. And definitely got a lot of Spurs fans excited. Ange said after the game he wanted to keep a lid on things. He didn't want it to go over the top, but you know, after Maddison compared him to Neymar, he just couldn't help it. So he said there's cats out of the bag now, he said, so might as well talk about it. He said he was planning on coming out after the game and playing down his performance, and then he heard what Maddison said, so now he's got no choice. So yeah, brilliant day for him, brilliant day for Spurs fans. Let's just hope that's a start of many performances like that.
Yeah, let's hope
First
so.
of many, yeah.
In terms of the game yesterday, 9 changes made by Ange Postecoglou. A lot of fans were taking to social media worried Fraser Forster was playing and the amount of changes that we made. An important game, try to keep up that 100% record in the Europa League. And Fraser, for one, didn't disappoint. I thought Fraser had a really strong game yesterday. I thought everything thrown his way, he dealt with really well. A couple of really quality moments in there from him as well. So you got to give Fraser Forster credit after responding, you know, because he came in against Coventry. He was poor, albeit he did make a few saves in that game, but I think he did himself some justice yesterday. He
did all right. I thought he made some good saves at important times, especially there was one-on-one in the second half, which he had to be big, and the strike was just straight at him. There was one moment in the first half where he had to come out quick off his line, and he dived at the feet of the striker and did well to prevent that from turning into a moment. And then obviously he's had made a save from a header from a corner, which I think personally Vicario probably saves more comfortably than Forster did, albeit it's not the easiest save in the world, but it's not right in the corner. I didn't think there was that much power on it, and he makes it look like a world-class save. But actually, I think when you look at the replay, it wasn't that good. I did think as well his passing was okay at times, but there was a couple of moments where he didn't look so comfortable. His passes to Bentancur sometimes were, you know, not the best technique, a bit bobbly, led to Bentancur having to rush some of his passes because of the passing from Forster. So look, I don't want to criticise him because I thought he had a good game and I thought he made some big saves, but I don't think I saw anything to suggest to me that, you know, I haven't changed my feelings on him just because of that game, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's no really feelings to change. I mean, but you know, he's stepped in and did a good job. I mean, that's all that needs to be said about it. But in terms of the 9 changes made and Spurs getting over the line with the 3 points, it was impressive, wasn't it? Because it wasn't the most unbelievable display that we've put in this season. It's clear to see as that. But when you make so many changes, it's a credit and a testament to Ange Postecoglou to make so many changes and to get those 3 points.
And that's the most important thing. And to come out of these Europa League games and to come out of yesterday is the fact that not only are we making 9 changes from the weekend, from obviously which is our most settled team, we're having 3 teenagers start the game as well. We have a teenager, obviously, Odegaard, who came off the bench as well to have significant minutes. And not only are we making 9 changes, not only are we starting 3 teenagers, but we're also winning the game. And the 3 teenagers are having playing a significant role on the pitch in that victory. And I think that just goes to show the level of quality that these players are at and the level of talent we have in this squad, because it's not easy. That's not an easy thing to do in Europe, to start a young team like that. And not only to, you know, get by with it, but also to win with it and to get 3 wins in a row. Bergvall started 3 games. Archie Gray started 3 games. Mikey Moore started 2 games. And I think that goes to show the quality we have in our coming through our team, which is so impressive. And also the fact that we made those 9 changes and we got the victory as well is so positive, because obviously a big criticism of Spurs in recent years is the fact that we've heavily relied on certain players. and we haven't been able to rest certain players. And now the fact that we can make 9 changes in the Europa League game and get a victory and not feel it too much is so important, because that's what we're going to need going forward. We're going to need them to step in at some moments. We're going to need to give our best players a rest at some moments. And the fact that we're able to do that and still get victories is fantastic, because in years gone by, when we've rotated too heavily, it's cost us a lot of the time. And so the fact we can do it at the moment anyway, we seem to be able to make a lot of changes and get wins, is really, really important.
Yeah, and you're talking about big players stepping up for the team, and you go back to what you were saying just now about, past years in the Europa League when we would make a lot of changes, it would look terrible and drop points, would lose the game, get draws, whatever it may be, against lesser opposition. And maybe the few senior players that would play wouldn't step up for the team, and they think that this competition is a bit below them. You look at the senior players that were on the pitch yesterday, James Maddison, Rodrigo Bentancur, or them two specifically. James Maddison had the captain's armband on and just showed loads of traits of leadership. But not only that, he was dominating the game in the first half, where chances were maybe few and far between and we weren't at our fluid best. He was the one really taking that game by the scruff of the neck, being really hard to handle. 3 men around him, no problem. He would wriggle his way out of those situations, and he was really showing those leadership traits in terms of the penalty situation as well.
Yeah, and I thought he really stepped up for the team yesterday, and I thought as a captain, I thought he really led by example. He was the one who looked probably the sharpest. He looked the most intense in that first half. I thought the way he was weaving in and out of players when they were trying to press him, and he just attacked the space ruthlessly with his incredible agility, was fantastic to see. And I think that really set the tone for a lot of other players. Yes, it wasn't the most great team performance. Maybe it was a bit disjointed, but I thought Maddison himself was absolutely phenomenal for much of the game. And I thought if anything was going to happen in terms of moment of magic, it was going to be James Maddison providing it. And really unlucky probably not to get a goal or assist last night. Obviously he gave the penalty up to Richarlison, which goes to show his character and his leadership skills as well. But it was his run that made the penalty, wasn't it? And that was a few times he was not just getting the ball to feet and taking players on, but also running in behind and getting behind the defence. And those are really important things, because you've got to kind of keep the opposition guessing. You can't keep doing the same thing. I think that's exactly what he did yesterday. He was looking at different avenues of attack. I read a stat just before, he had more touches in the penalty area than any other player in game week 3 game week 3 in the Europa League. So that goes to show what an impact he made in the game.
Yeah. And I think you're right. And I think I've said it as well. Like, it wasn't a vintage display. I don't think it was a great team performance. But what I did think is that a lot of individuals actually played a really good game yesterday. When you're looking at Maddison, the way Bentancur recovered in that second half, I thought he was absolutely brilliant in that second half. Rodrigo Bentancur. I thought Radu Dragusin, from his defensive capabilities, put in a top display last night. And obviously Mikey Moore as well, in his second half display was incredible. Destiny and Doggy, I thought, was incredible throughout the game. So, I mean, these kind of players were the ones that really dragged us through this game.
And I think I said that before the game, like, that's probably what's more important in these games. Yes, we want a great team performance, don't get me wrong, and that's what Ange is aiming towards. But in these games, when you're making lots of changes, I think what is more important for the time being is getting the level of performance from the likes of Gray, Bergvall, Mikey Moore, these kind of Richarlison, coming back from injury. I think the most important thing right now is to get their level of performance to a certain standard, so that they can just be interchangeable in the squad, and they can come in and perform at a certain level. So as much as it wasn't a great team performance, it was maybe a bit disjointed, I think there was a lot of good individual displays. And first of all, once everyone starts performing well individually, the team performances would improve. But I think that's super important, so that when we have injuries, for example, to bigger players, and we have to use these guys in Premier League, or if there's just a lot of Premier League games, for example, in December coming up in quick succession, we're going to need to rotate in big games. These guys are going to be more ready to step in and just be interchangeable within the squad. So I think that is a very important thing right now. And I hope, because I think, to be honest, when it comes to, let's say, the latter stages of Europa League, the knockouts, I don't think we're going to be making 9 changes.
Nah, definitely not.
So I think the fact that I don't think it's that important in Europa League right now that we make 9 changes, that it's not the best team performance, as much as that's where you're aiming towards. And of course, that's what Ange is going to be aiming to kind of produce as a manager, to get good team performances. I don't think at this point in the early stages of the group stage, it's as important than getting all these players up to speed individually. And that's what I think maybe we're focusing on.
Yeah. If you look at the momentum bar and the progress bar from last night, I mean, as much as it wasn't a great performance, it was still a pretty dominant performance, wasn't it? And I felt like, AZ Alkmaar kind of did have a few chances, maybe capitalising on some poor playing out the back from Tottenham. But for the most part, we did have, a lion's share of the possession. We were asking the majority of the questions, and they didn't trouble us too much, did they?
Yeah, I mean, they had a few chances, which we know, as we said a million times with Spurs, that's the risk we take with the way we play. And we always leave spaces at the back, and they did nearly punish us. That Poku down the left-hand side, he was a bright spark for them. Archie Gray was having a tough time with him. He was pacey, he was energetic. They did have, obviously, that chance from a corner, which Forster had to save. They had a one-on-one when Davis makes a mistake near the end of the game, which Forster has to step up. Apart from those couple of moments, those are probably the best chances they had. Apart from that, I felt like we were really troubled. I did think Dragoshin defensively was very dominant. I think anything that came his way, he was gobbling up from his point of view. So I thought he did a really good job on that front, very proactive with his defending. I think we penned them in very well. I think maybe at times we struggled to really create clear-cut chances against them, but obviously we had more of the ball and we were creating more chances in general, and the more you do that, the more likely you are to break the deadlock, which we did with the penalty. So, yeah, as much as it wasn't wasn't the best performance, you got to remember we are playing a good team in AZ Alkmaar. They're in Europe for a reason. They are currently 5th in a decent league like the Eredivisie. And when you're making 9 changes, it's always going to be very difficult. And the fact that we can do that, have a fairly dominant performance and grab a win and a clean sheet, I think goes to show some of the talent we do have in this squad. Yeah,
and Rodrigo Bentancur, a lot of people were complaining about his first half performance, and quite rightly so. He did seem a bit passive, his passing wasn't up to scratch, but something kind of changed in that second half for him, where, I don't know, Ange must have got in his ear or something saying, you're one of the senior players, you need to step it up for the team, and he very much did that.
Yeah, I don't think he was terrible first half, but he didn't have that intensity. He didn't seem to be sharp in that first half. He got nutmegged once in that first half as well, and he didn't seem to be kind of playing with the same intensity which he can when he's at his best. In the second half, I think he came out with a bit of intent, and I think that definitely changed his approach. He was a lot more aggressive when it came to the pressing, and I think he was giving a lot better protection for the back line. Look, I don't think we were too exposed anyway in the first half, and I don't think he was like letting us down or leaving us open, but I don't think he was... I think there was a lack of intensity, I think is the right word, in his play in that first half, and I think he upped his game definitely in the second half, and we benefited from it. So I thought in the first half on the ball he was okay. I thought off the ball he just lacked that bit of bite, and then second half you just saw he was being a lot more aggressive, and that helped us.
Who really impressed me yesterday as well, another player who I actually didn't mention when we were talking about the players stepping it up for the team, was Lucas Bergvall. I felt like in the games that he started, this was his best performance in the Spurs shirt to date. And that ball was just incredible to die for, outside of the boot, just taking out their whole defence in one ball pretty much. But it wasn't just that. I think he was a constant threat throughout, Lucas Bergvall. And for a player of 18 years of age, obviously you're talking about Mikey Moore 17, Archie Gray 18 as well. For Mikey Moore, obviously wasn't really involved in the game too much in the first half, and I think he was struggling out on that right-hand side. But Bergvall, from first half down to the second half, I thought he put in a really strong display.
Yeah, and I was really happy with him. I think to be fair, I think I've been pretty happy with him so far this season, by and large. I think as an 18-year-old coming to a new league, new expectations with him, it's always going to be tough, but I actually think he's adapted fairly well. I actually don't think he's put in a stinker in any game, and I think by and large he's been pretty positive. But yeah, I thought yesterday was his best performance. I thought he really was influencing the game a lot in that centre of the park. Obviously, Maddison was pulling the strings a bit more, and maybe Bergvall went under the radar a bit, but I actually think he was quite good at just keeping the ball ticking over, and I thought some of his passing was exceptional. I thought, as you said, that ball to Werner to play him through on goal was inch perfect timing of the pass and inch perfect execution as well, from a very difficult position in the centre of the park to pull off an outside of the boot pass like he did was phenomenal to see. Obviously won the penalty as well when he's kind of helping out, he's following in on Maddison's touch after Maddison runs in behind, he's about to shoot and then he gets brought down, which was a terrible challenge from Decker. So I think that was a good piece of play from him, and he had a bit of bite in him as well, made quite a few tackles. I think won 4 of his 7 duels, 3 tackles. So I thought he had a pretty solid game actually, Lucas Bergvall. And look, it's easy, as much as we got high expectations because of the talent we can clearly see he has. You've got to remember he's 18, he's very young, and there's always going to be an adaptation period. He's only played in the Swedish league, and this is a big step up. So I've been delighted with him so far, to be honest. I think he looks really exciting. Yeah,
the other 18-year-old Archie Gray, I did feel like he got given a really hard time by Poku out on that right-hand side, our right-hand side, their left. He did get beaten quite a few times on that side, but I think for the most part he did handle himself pretty well throughout.
I think Poku clearly was their danger man for most of the game, and he was taking them on a lot. But how much did they actually create from that side? I think he got, to be fair, I did think there was a couple of times he got beaten and then Radu or Bentancur had to come over and cover. So I think, I wouldn't say he got away with it, but, there were some times he was struggling. But I think by and large, he looked comfortable. Maybe not as composed as I've seen him in other games, where he's just super confident to try things and play the ball forward. Didn't see that much of it in this game from him, but I still think it was a solid all-round performance. And look, again, an 18-year-old. I know he's played well in the Championship last season, and he played a right-back a lot for Leeds last season. But again, new environment. He's a young player playing first time at the top level. And I still think he's acquitted himself pretty well. And if that, that's probably one of his weaker displays in the Spurs shirt so far. And I still think he put a really good base level display. So pretty happy with him as well.
It just felt like we were watching something special last night with Mikey Moore, didn't it, in that second half? Because we were saying, it's likely that Mikey could... We saw that Brennan was getting ready at half-time, and we thought, it's likely that Mikey Moore could go off. I was hoping and praying that it was going to be Werner to go off and not Moore, and obviously that's what came to pass. But Mikey, as soon as that second half started, you could see he wanted the ball. He was confident. He wanted to take on his man. He wanted to make stuff happen. There was at one point, Maddison was just kept beating him because he was just in the mood. Like something just kind of flipped in him in that second half. And the amount of times he was taking on his man, I mean, in the first opening 10 minutes of that second half, he must have taken on his man and successfully about 6 or 7 times. It was incredible. That fullback must be having nightmares about him from what he performed, getting absolutely destroyed by a 17-year-old consistently in those opening 20 minutes.
He got taken off, I think.
And he got taken off as well of the second half. And it just felt like a bit of an announcement game, if you know what I mean, because he had a good performance at Ferencváros, but this was a completely new level.
Yeah, there were shades of it in Ferencváros of what he can do dribbling-wise. Obviously, if you take your mind back to that game, first minute he takes someone on, gets fouled, and there are a couple of times where he was doing some really good stuff on the right-hand side, and I think he set up the chance for the opening goal for Sarr to score, and so there were inklings of what he's capable of, away at a difficult side like Ferencváros. But I thought he really announced himself yesterday with those opening 20 minutes of the second half. He was absolutely sensational, was untouchable. I mean, you could watch a top winger put in that kind of performance. If so, you could say some of the top wingers in the Premier League, and if they're putting in that kind of performance, you say, oh, they're in the mood today, they're looking good today. What a performance they're putting in today. And this is a 17-year-old kid who's doing that against a very good side like RZ. And it's not easy for a 17-year-old to be capable of that level of performance at such a young age, at such a high level. And yet he comes in, and he's not just beating one player or two players. There were some moves he was beating three or four players. And not only that, a couple of times he had the quality at the end of it to match, which is even more impressive, or just as impressive as his dribbling ability. Clearly, this guy has, for his age, unbelievable upper body strength to able to get away from players. Or not only does he have good speed, which I think a lot of it is not to do. Obviously, he's fast. I don't think he's maybe as fast as someone like, maybe obviously he's only 17 and maybe it'll happen. I don't think he's as fast as, say, let's say someone like Brennan. But what he does is he manipulates the opposition to get them off balance, and then as soon as they're off balance, he attacks that space ruthlessly, and that's really, really an impressive trait. You don't actually have to be the fastest player to be a good dribbler.
He's fast up here, though. That's
exactly.
The thing.
There are some really amazing dribblers. Look at Maddison, brilliant dribbler. He's not the fastest. You don't have to be to beat your man. It's all about balance and manipulating your opponent, and he's clearly quite good at doing that. And he was catching them off balance a number of times. But I think what was just as impressive was the moments after that came the dribbles. There was that moment where he dribbles past 3 players and then plays an inch perfect Travella through ball to Brennan Johnson through on goal, right into his path. Now, actually, Brennan didn't have to break stride, but I actually think Brennan screwed that up because he waited way too long to shoot. Brennan could have easily got a shot on target at that moment. If Brennan wasn't just waiting for it to come, I think if he just went towards the ball, he could get a shot on target, maybe even a goal there. And I think Brennan kind of screwed that chance up. And then there was a moment where he again takes on 3 players, gets to the byline on his left foot this time, flashes it across the face of goal. And I don't know, I wouldn't say it was Brennan's fault, but Brennan's usually there at the back post to tap it in, and he wasn't on that occasion. So brilliant quality that Mikey Moore has as well as his incredible dribbling ability, which as for a 17-year-old to perform like that kind of level is astonishing. It really is astonishing. And on that evidence, we really got a star in our hands, star in the making. It's so exciting.
Yeah, and even when he wasn't playing that well on the right-hand side in the first half, he still put in a couple of really nice crosses into the box, didn't he? And he seems as though, like, you're looking at our wingers right now. I mean, I can't. I mean, I know Werner put in an unbelievable cross for Moore in the opening minutes of the game, and Moore probably should have finished that with the header. But on a consistent basis, from what we've seen from Mikey Moore in the game against Ferencváros and the game here, I mean, his crossing looks incredible.
Yeah, he's got great delivery, and there was another moment. You're right, because another moment where he beat a player, cut inside and drifted it to the far post.
Yeah.
And it just went over Richarlison's head, and Bergvall just missed it as well, which shows he doesn't have to just drill it. He's also got a good lofted cross as well to that back post, which was so close to being on the money for 2 Spurs players there. So he's got a great delivery. So he looks like he's got. What doesn't he have? And he's only going to get better because he's 17. So, he's still so young. He's got still so much learning to do. It is important, as Ange said, you want to keep his feet on the ground. Being where he is now for a kid his age is obviously incredible, but it's only the start of the journey. He can't feel like, he's made it yet. He's got to still, do this week in, week out. He's got to perform consistently. He's got to keep getting better. He's got to grow into his body a bit more, You can see he's still got a bit of growing to do. So, as much as he's very strong for a boy his age. So obviously it's important to not go overboard and keep his feet on the ground, but it's hard not to when you see him performing like that, because it's just, you don't see 17-year-olds every day performing like that at this level, and it's really, really amazing.
It's just incredible, like the skill set he has at this age. He can go inside, he can go outside. He's playing against fully grown men that have been playing week in, week out in men's football. It's just mad to see, and I'm as much as I've been banging on about Mikey Moore for so long, I didn't think like he would announce himself this quickly in this season. It's just mad to think about. And Timo Werner goes off. Surely Mikey is ahead of him in the pecking order now. Surely.
Yeah, you think so? I would say so. Obviously, Ange was talking this press conference today, and he said, in regards to him playing on Sunday, that he said he's ready to start, but he said it's more about the only real problem, the only real not concerned, but he's the only thing he needs to consider is him physically. Him overworking and playing 2 games a week. He's just got to watch out for that. So I think Ange clearly feels like he's got no problem starting him at the moment. When you're playing like that in Europa League, you've only got to look at some players in the past who've earned their chances in Europa League and then gone on to play in the Premier League. And I think look at Harry Kane when he was performing in Europa League, and we just couldn't ignore him. In fact, we did ignore him for a few weeks, and then just got to the stage. He just kept getting like hat trick after hat trick. Like, okay, we can't ignore him anymore.
Yeah.
You got to start playing him, and then obviously look, he never looked back. I'm not saying Moore is Kane level, but it's getting to that stage where he's playing so well in Europa. Like, we just can't ignore that. Ignore him at the moment. I do wonder whether he'll start on Sunday, but obviously we'll get into that. But I mean, I can't think of a better opportunity, to be honest.
It's a really good opportunity. And when you're talking about you don't want to overplay these youngsters, I mean, we don't. When you're talking about overplaying him, he's only going to be playing because Sonny can't play, right? So if Sonny comes back in, you're still kind of keeping his feet on the ground. Give him that taste of Premier League action on the weekend, and then bring Sonny back into the team when he's fit for the next game against Man City, probably. But the guy, I just can't stop thinking about Mikey Moore and his performance last night. I thought it was that good. I was kind of blown away from it, as much as I've been, banging on about him for a while. But
you reckon Thomas Tuchel was keeping an eye?
Definitely. And he's going to be in the World Cup squad in a couple of years' time. But you're talking about keeping his feet on the ground. James Maddison literally came out and called him Neymar after the game.
Exactly. So maybe not the wisest thing. I remember Pochettino when he compared Marcus Edwards to Messi. He did kind of say it was a mistake to do that a couple of years after maybe it got to his head, or I don't know what happened with Edwards at Spurs, but there was problems between him and the management staff, and never really got the opportunities to really get into the first team. I don't know if it was an attitude problem or what.
That's what was spoken about.
So I think maybe we shouldn't go too overboard. You don't want it to get to his head. You don't want him to think, oh, I'm the best player, I should be starting every week kind of thing, because he's got to remember he's got a lot of developing to do. So I think that is an important thing. But yeah, it's hard to not get excited when you're seeing him play at that kind of level. Yeah,
but it also depends on the mentality of the player. And when you're talking about, when you hear anyone talking about him, like, they all just talk about his mentality first and foremost. Like, he's always looking to improve. He's willing to be a sponge and take in all that information and around him, using inspiration from all the players. And he just feels like the mentality on the boy just seems to be top notch, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what Ange said. He said, even though he heard what Maddis said, he doesn't think it will affect Mikey Moore, because that's how he approaches things, and he's taken everything in his stride. So let's hope he continues in that way.
Yeah. But all in all, really good night last night. Everyone's talking about Mikey, but we did win a game of football yesterday, and that leaves it to 100% record in the Europa League, which puts us in an extremely commanding position. We're one of only 3 teams that have completed the 3 wins out of 3. Lazio top, we're second, Anderlecht to third, with Galatasaray coming up next, which is probably going to be our hardest game. If we can get through Galatasaray without a defeat, surely that's top 8 done and dusted, if it's not already.
Pretty much. I think for top 24, you're looking at probably another win, probably another point even. I'll probably even say, even if we lose every other game, we'll probably have a good chance of making it anyway. So I would say top 24, we're pretty certain now with those 3 wins. Yeah, and as you say, if we can go get a draw at Galatasaray, I think, 2 wins probably 100% secures top 8. You might even do it with less, I would say. There's probably a chance you do it with less. But I think, obviously, if you get 15 points, that's the benchmark, I think, to get there. I think I read on Opta, they said if you get... if you get 15 points, I say you've got a 45% chance of getting top 8. If you get 16, it goes to about 50% chance of getting top 8. So we've put ourselves in a very good position. We've got obviously Elfsborg at home to come.
Yeah, that's the last game.
That's obviously the last game, but that's always that's a game where you're thinking, that's a guaranteed. But to be fair, the other games, Rangers, Hoffenheim, Galatasaray, and Roma, none of those are easy games. I don't know if we can make 9 changes in any of those games and win, to be honest. So that's going to have to. So we're going to have to see where we can rotate in those games. But if we can go to Galatasaray and just get the win or get a draw, that'll go a long way to just sealing that top 8 spot.
How would you like to see us navigate that Galatasaray game? Do you want to see us go really strong in that game, or only a couple of changes? How do you think we would play it?
What's our schedule around there?
Well, Galatasaray is the week after Man City. So we got Palace this weekend. We got Man City midweek.
And Villa at home.
Then Galatasaray.
So then we got Ipswich at home after Galatasaray on the Sunday. and then after that's international break. So, look, obviously Villa is a very important game. I expect us to play a full-strength team, but I guess Galatasaray, I guess it's going to have to be fairly full strength, to be honest. I don't think we're going to be making 9 changes. I think we're going to have to make some changes, but I'm thinking like
you got the changes, don't you? That don't decrease the quality. Like you've got a Basuma for a Bentancur, so one
like
of them will play.
I wonder if, say, for example, on an occasion like this, do you say play Porro and Udogie and maybe play Spence against Ipswich if he's fit, for example? Do we do that? Do you maybe even play, one of Maddison and Decky in that game and then play a Bergvall on the Sunday? I think, you might think you're better off making a few more changes against Ipswich rather than Galatasaray just to get the win. That might be the case.
Yeah. All right, well, that is the match review from the 1-0 win against AZ Alkmaar yesterday. 100% record in the group.